Like, how are people not recognizing this? How are politicians in the Democratic Party not even invested in this for simple self-preservation? This is directly threatening your life, not just your livelihood, not just your position in society, but just your life too. All right, we're gonna go to another incredibly situation. Senator Alex Padilla forcibly removed from press briefing by Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. I gotta pee real quick. I'll be back.
The fact of the matter is, a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your.
I also want to talk about specifically how many of our ICE agents have been docked and what they have tried to insert into the state. So I want to say thank you to every single person that has been able to do this.
Hands up.
Also, I want to talk specifically
I have
to the
questions for
rioters and
the
to the
secretary,
politicians.
because the fact of the matter is, a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your.
I also want to talk about specifically how many of our ICE agents have been doxxed for doing their duty, how they have been targeted, and how their families have.
All right, volatile situation breaking right now. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is going to be with us in a minute. California Senator Alex Padilla is now speaking outside the FBI building. Let's listen.
I'm here
let's listen in.
Los Angeles today, and I was here in the federal building, in the conference room, awaiting a scheduled briefing from federal officials as part of my responsibility as a senator to provide oversight and accountability. While I was waiting for the briefing with General Guillot, I learned that Secretary Noem was having a press conference a couple of doors down the hall. Since the beginning of the year, but especially over the course of recent weeks, several of my colleagues, have been asking the Department of Homeland Security for more information and more answers on their increasingly extreme immigration enforcement actions. And we've gotten little to no information in response to our inquiries. And so I came to the press conference to hear what she had to say, to see if I could learn any new additional information. And at one point, I had a question. And let me emphasize, just as we've emphasized the right for people to peacefully protest and to stand up for their First Amendment rights, for our fundamental rights. I was there peacefully. At one point, I had a question. And so I began to ask a question. I was almost immediately forcibly removed from the room. I was forced to the ground, and I was handcuffed. I was not arrested. I was not detained. I will say this. If this is how this administration responds to a senator with a question, if this is how the Department of Homeland Security responds to a senator with a question, you can only imagine what they're doing to farm workers, to cooks, to day laborers out in the Los Angeles community and throughout California and throughout the country. We will hold this administration accountable. And we'll have more to say. We'll have more to say in the.
It's so wild that all of the most ridiculous fantasies of Republicans, the most ridiculous hysterics of the Republicans, of like the Democratic Party somehow enforcing tremendous control over their lives and being aggressive and militant, all of that is precisely what the Republicans are now doing to everyone. Like, for years, Republicans hysterically cried about how this was what was going on. This is what the Democrats wanted to do to them. And now they are literally doing it. They're doing the actual thing. that they claim the Democrats might want to do in the future.
Hands behind your back. Hands behind your back.
Watch to the very end when they tell the senator's staffer there's no recording allowed as they drive him to the ground after physically removing him from a press conference. Yes, their position is that there is no recording allowed at a press event.
If you let my hands go and stand behind my back.
All right, cool. Other hand. Lay flat. Lay flat.
Other hand, sir. Other hand.
There's no recording allowed out here. I did not know. There's no recording
What do you mean there's no recording allowed in here?
allowed out here per FBI, right? Hands behind your back. Hands behind your back.
If you let my hands go and stand behind my back.
All right, cool. Other hand. Lay flat.
And Alex Padilla is right. If they do this to a senator for asking a question, what are they doing to everybody else? What are they doing to average citizens who don't have this protection? Schumer made this announcement in the middle of a debate on a bill where Democrats were collaborating with the Republicans on crypto legislation. How can you compartmentalize these two actions is beyond me.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I just saw something that sickened my stomach. The manhandling of a United States senator. We need immediate answers to what the hell went on. I yield the floor.
Wow. My goat. He's really doing it now. Chat, you done pissed him off. You won't like him when he's angry. Shifty Schiff wants an investigation. Adam Schiff, Padilla's delegation partner, says there should be an investigation for the officers who apprehended Padilla to be treated the way he has, to be essentially brought to the ground and shackled as a disgraceful action. Like, how are people not recognizing this? How are politicians in the Democratic Party not even invested in this for simple self-preservation? Like, you might be invested, you might not care about your constituents getting brutalized, right? Many of them don't. They're assholes. All they care about is power. Okay, well, this is directly threatening your life. Not just your livelihood, not just your position in society, but just your life too. How are you not recognizing the terrifying nature, the authoritarian creep? Like, you can't even defend yourself. Like, that's how it feels like. It feels like Democrats are such that they don't even want to defend themselves. Okay? Noem response to Padilla being forcibly removed. I don't even know the senator. He did not request a meeting with me or speak with me. So when I leave here, I'll have a conversation with him. I think everybody in America would agree that was inappropriate. Wait, is she saying that the apprehension was inappropriate? Or is she saying that the senator from California that was demanding a question from the Department of Homeland Security secretary was inappropriate?
Oh, you know what? I don't even know the senator. He did not request a meeting with me or to speak with me. So when I leave here, I'll have a conversation with him and visit and find out really what his concerns were. I think everybody in America would agree that that wasn't appropriate.
I genuinely can't tell if she's saying, oh, she's saying the senator was doing something inappropriate. Nice. Okay. I don't know. Maybe she wasn't. I don't want to think that she is saying the interruption was inappropriate is what she's saying. Oh my God. Oh, it is. I don't agree with what happened, but this is actually Alex Padilla's karma for dehumanizing Palestinians who pro-Israel votes. Yeah, except in this situation, what goes around comes around, but he is literally doing the right thing. He was doing the right thing by demanding answers and trying to do right by his constituents. So, you know, I don't disagree with you as far as like what these guys do and what these guys entertain in terms of what happens to Palestinians with our weapons, with our tax dollars, and our appetite for violence. Our appetite for violence overseas certainly plays a role in our appetite for violence here and our analysis of what kind of violence is permissible here. Okay? It does. What goes around does come around. Having said that, I think in this moment, you know, we have to be a little bit more tactical with our approach, because what happened here is completely unjustifiable. And Alex Padilla was tackled to the ground for doing the right thing. Foe of the show, DHS spokesperson Trisha weighs in. Trisha McLaughlin. Senator Padilla chose Oh, yeah, the one who said I was lying for likes. Senator Padilla chose disrespectful political theater and interrupted a live press conference without identifying himself or having a Senate security pin on as he lunged towards Secretary Noem. Mr. Padilla was told repeatedly to back away and did not comply with the officer's repeated commands. Secret Service thought he was an attacker and officers acted appropriately. Secretary Noem met with Senator Padilla after and held a 15-minute meeting. New Quinnipiac poll shows Senate Democrats have Trump's approval rating is 38 to 53. GOP's approval rating is 32 to 61. Okay. Approval rating is 32. Disapproval is 61. Trump's approval rating is 38. Disapproval is 53. But they have one thing going for them. Democrats are even more unpopular. The Democratic Party's approval rating is 21% approval to 70% disapproval. And the reason for why is because the Democrats have lost their own base. They have designed their campaigns, as I warned, against my warnings, against my wishes. This is exactly what I was talking about when I said Democrats are simply eroding trust within their base of support by constantly trying to bring in support from this mystical, fantastical, non-existent, middle of the road voters or Republican Party voters that will then turn around and be like, well, I want to vote for the reasonable party. The reasonable fascist party. It's not going to happen. And here we are. And if they don't change, if they do not change their attitude, they are permanently and them being permanently is not a good thing. I'm not a defender of the Democratic Party, but them having this little, not enjoying even a little bit of confidence is warranted, but it's also dangerous. Because if there's no counterbalance, if there's no pushback against growing fascism, then it's over. I say at a workplace raid. You guys understand we have a signed warrant to be here, worker, and here's my bag of.
You guys understand we have a signed warrant authorizing us from a judge to be here. And here's my bag of. I'm just telling you. You say we don't have a right to be here. Apparently a judge did. You guys understand we have a
Hasanabi is a troublemaker. This guy comes in, and I think in my head canon, this dude who comes in and says this every day is like 75 years old. But he comes in here every day and says this. Like, I'm a whippersnapper, a scoundrel.
Coming days. Let me say just briefly in Spanish as well.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click.
Peter.
Thank you, President.
Anyway, Trump is backing away from some of the crackdowns, apparently, because industry leaders went to him and were like, what the fuck are you doing? You're actually impacting our bottom line. No shit. Not exactly sure what this will look like. Not exactly sure what kind of scale backs will take place. But this is part of the reason why I said, don't say taco here, guys. Come on. This is part of the reason why I said mass deportations, the way that these guys envisioned it, will not happen because it harms the bottom line far too much. From their perspective, from their calculation, it's good on migrants because business owners rely on migrants being a permanent underclass, constantly in legal limbo, not getting their citizenship, so they can't actually actively fight for better wages and better workplace protections. They can be discarded and disposed of when companies no longer or when companies feel like they want too much, like back pay, or they complain too much about sexual harassment and sexual violence that takes place in the assembly line. And they can just discard of them by calling ICE on themselves, only to turn around and bring in a fresh crop of undocumented migrants. And this means that ultimately the Trump administration is not white supremacist enough to fully go through with full purges of all undocumented migrants in the country, because ultimately the real reason why that white supremacist, white nativist, anti-migrant, anti-immigration agenda, the reason why it's used and utilized is so that capital owners can continue maintaining a crop of undocumented migrants to begin with. It's still ultimately for capital, still ultimately for the profit margins. If they were racist enough, like if they were real ass racist, didn't you say this wasn't the case the other stream? No, I have maintained the position that full tilt mass deportation is concentration camps, and it would absolutely destroy the economy. And therefore, they won't go through with this. They won't go through with the full agenda. They don't even have the logistics to go through with it. They don't have enough people to go through with it. But ultimately, beyond the cruelty, beyond the inhumane nature, and beyond the logistical issues, yes, Aviva Chomsky talks about this in her book, Undocumented: How Immigration Became Illegal. I think it's a really, really important work, and I highly recommend you guys all read it if you have the opportunity. Aviva Chomsky is one of Noam Chomsky's children, for those of you who don't know, but that is exactly what I'm talking about. That is what I'm referencing when I talk about this issue. Immigration, like flows of migration, will always happen due to the instability that we cause in the global south and due to climate change. And therefore, we will always have a hyper exploited underclass, a permanent underclass of laborers, but they can only remain a permanent underclass of laborers, which also has the capacity to depress wages for the documented workforce as well, because there's constantly people that will do the same job, if not better, work longer hours for pennies on the dollar, as opposed to the documented American laborer, that they can only maintain this structure as long as there is reactionary sentiment, dehumanization, and no pathway to citizenship for these people. Because if they were to become full-blown citizens, then they would be able to better advocate for their own needs, their desires. They would have better workplace protections. They would not have to constantly worry about being ripped away from their family and loved ones. That's why I always say the real solution to this problem is to expedite and offer conditional amnesty to every single migrant in this country, which is an overwhelmingly popular alternative to mass deportation. If you actually want to improve the wages and living standards of American workers, that is what you're supposed to do.